was going to work for Coach Fritz, leaving Troy at Tulane and then moving here? Why was that the right move for you?
While I was going to Tulane to work for him and then coming here, it was just a really good opportunity for me and my family, the opportunity to go to Tulane in New Orleans to work with him. We had a very successful year at Troy. I was fortunate to get that job as a defensive coordinator with John Summerall, who had just been hired as the new head coach. We were able to really do some things that we were hoping to do there, but I don't know that we were necessarily aware that it would happen as quickly as it did. You know, we won 12 games. We did some great things defensively. We won the conference championship. We won our bowl game. So the turnaround, so to speak, and the success that we achieved came extremely quick. You know, and it was just a credit to our players and staff. But I think that you know, kind of elevated just maybe some opportunities for me, and just, you know, the professionally, and I think a lot of things to do with going to New Orleans as well for, you know, a guy that's married and has 2 young daughters, I think was very attractive to us. So it was just a great fit, and really, really glad that I took that opportunity and that I got that opportunity. It turned out to be a great, you know, 9 months, I guess, for me, because I got hired kind of in mid-February. And then, you know, to be sitting here now, to have the season that we had, to have Coach Fritz transition here to Houston with that opportunity and to be asked to come is another blessing. And, you know, just a lot of different things in my career have come, you know, when I least expected the opportunities to show up. So just excited to be here, excited. It's a great challenge in front of us, and looking forward to it.
Has there been a moment during those stops where, whether it's right time, right place, kind of where it sort of was the catapult to lead you to the bigger jobs, or was there anything early in your career, one of the stops that sort of made a big impact or a big difference for you?
Sure. I mean, I would say that from a foundational standpoint, the thing that probably has impacted me being in this position today more than anything else was my time spent at Wofford College in South Carolina. That's where I played. Mike Ayers was the head coach there for 30 years, South Carolina Hall of Fame, Southern Conference Hall of Fame, 30 years as the head football coach at one school. Saw them in a transition from NAIA to NCAA Division II to NCAA Division I FCS. I was there as a player and a coach. 8 years as a coach, 2 different stints. I was there for 6 years. I was out of coaching for 3, and then back there at Wofford for 2. I say all that to say tremendous leader, tremendous motivator, tremendous football coach. And he also had a staff after being there for 30 years and having a ton of success, conference titles, playoffs, so forth, had a staff of guys that also, the continuity there was extremely unique. There were guys in that program as coaches that had been there, some of them for the entire time that Coach was there. Others that had played for him and then been there for almost a couple of decades in a variety maybe of different roles. And in that group, there were some guys that were really good football coaches and mentors to me. And I think at a young age in the coaching profession, I was exposed to some phenomenal leaders, some phenomenal teachers, some phenomenal mentors that have kind of propelled me, and also I think gave me a really good foundation of not only the X's and O's, but how to do things the right way, how to communicate, how to teach, how to recruit. So I think that experience laid a foundation, and some of those connections that I made during my playing and coaching career there have served to help continue my development through my career, and certainly I lean on a lot of those people in my life, you know, to this day.
Do you have a philosophy on how defense should be played? You know, an approach you sort of take? Sure.
Yes, there's different parts of the philosophy that you talk about with your staff and players, but I think overall, we'd like to have a defense that plays extremely fast, and there's a couple of different components to that, but I think that, we want to recruit guys that have speed and athleticism, and sometimes we prioritize that maybe a little bit more than other measurables. But that's a case-by-case basis. So actual physical speed is one part of it, certainly. But I think to play fast as a defense, there's a lot of fundamentals that go into that. There's also important components on how you structure what you're doing defensively, because a large part of my experience and some of the stops I've had and the success we've had of playing fast is guys having the ability to, read and react quickly and keep things really simple. And being simple in football is easier said than done. It's a nature of a coach to explore different schemes, fronts, coverages, blitzes, and he who has the pin last wins. If you can draw up a scheme that outnumbers them at the point of attack, but at the end of the day, I think that having something to where our guys can understand and can play up to their full potential, that's the playing fast philosophy that I think, and the approach that we'll try to have here, because we've got some really good players, and if we can teach things conceptually and keep things simple to where they can play great fundamentals, great leverage, and read and react and go pull the trigger and really play hard, then I think that's the kind of playing fast from a philosophy standpoint that has given us success, and I've been a part of having success with that in the past.
Most schools obviously are pretty multiple on defense, but what's your base philosophy in terms of what you like to run up front?
Sure. We base out of a 3-4 defensive structure.
Explains the linebackers. The job right in a lot of linebackers.
Yeah, that's right. And, you kind of evolve the type of system you run over the years, and certainly this one, I've been blessed, kind of going back, Joe, to your question, that time at Wofford, what we're doing, I've kind of been a part of since that time period at different places that I've been. So I'm fortunate for me, that I've been the consistency of having the same or very similar type of system that I've been in throughout different stops has, I think, over time given me maybe a better understanding of it and allowed me to maybe have some experience with adjustments and how you fix problems or attack different schemes. I think the type of 3-4 that we run, we try to be aggressive up front, attack, and then, like you mentioned, we'll be multiple. We'll get into some even front principles as well, and then 4-3, 3-4, 4-2-5, 3-3 stack. There's coverage concepts that go with all those defenses, and certainly scheme to scheme, people will kind of major in X, Y, and Z, but we'll try to be pretty multiple from a coverage standpoint and be able to attack in different ways and also move stress points around a little bit in different ways.
Is there a couple guys you usually lean on more than others? You need like a great nickel, or anybody that you prefer to have maybe potentially best couple spots at?
I think having a great edge pass rusher is something that we have benefited from in the past. And certainly if you have that, that gives you a different element. That nose position or the interior defensive lineman position has been really big for us. And then I think, one of those safety spots, kind of directing traffic back there as well. But that being said, I also think that we've got enough flexibility to where, if our strength is at this position in terms of maybe one of the guys that's one of the top tier players, I think hopefully we can do some things to put those guys in really good positions and be flexible within our scheme to take advantage of the skill sets that we have, basically. At least I hope so.
I believe you were one of the first guys that Willie had brought in when he got here. When you were shaping the defensive staff, some some you didn't. Did you have a lot of input there, or was there certain people that you were looking for that maybe tailored to fit all the specialties and everything, the brain power, so to speak, to all be on the same page?
Right. Well, we're fortunate that there's 3 defensive assistants, including myself, that were with us at Tulane. And so that continuity is a big deal. Last couple of opportunities that I've had, I've basically gone in, with Troy. There was one guy I'd worked with previously, and then Tulane, no one. So the fact that there's some carryover there coming here has been, I think, will be extremely beneficial. And certainly Coach and I had some conversations early on, but I also think that with this opportunity for him, I think he had a pretty clear vision on a lot of different areas, staffing, recruiting, organizational type things, that he probably had a really clear vision on what he wanted. And I think you see some of that in the staffing that has come together as well.
Are you a particular recruiting area, or you like to go all out in different areas?
Well, I was at Wofford for 8 years. I played there, and I just felt like we were there for a long time. And then I took one opportunity to go to Georgia Tech in Atlanta, and then that just kind of set in motion, like boom, boom, boom. I've bounced around a good bit since then. So I say all that to say I had recruited Georgia and kind of all parts of kind of middle to North Georgia, including extensively in the metro Atlanta area for a long time at Wofford. And then as I then moved around, Georgia Tech obviously was still heavily Georgia emphasis. But from there, I've ventured out in some areas that I hadn't recruited previously. When I was at the United States Military Academy up at West Point, I actually had a big part of Texas that I recruited as well. So that was kind of my first foray into recruiting this state. Now, that being said, one of those years was the COVID year, so it was all Zooms and phone calls. But no, I mean, I think as a recruiter, you want to develop relationships, and if you have an area that I haven't recruited Texas a ton, so I'm going to be building relationships, but I think that we're in a people business. That's what you're doing with your players, and I think to be successful, you got to go out there, be sincere, show people that you care, work hard to get to know them, and have a genuine interest in getting to know them, and hopefully by doing that, you build good bonds, and those lead to positive things from a recruiting standpoint. So I'm excited to be here in Texas, getting ready to recruit this area, which is just full of great young football players. I'm really looking forward to that part of this job for sure.
Those 3 years that you were, what did you do? Did you say you like those 3 years?
When I didn't coach? Yeah, so I actually ended up being a stay-at-home dad, believe it or not. That wasn't necessarily the intention. There were some different things that happened during that time period. My wife was finishing medical school. She's a physician. She was going to match for her residency program, which ended up with what she does was a 4-year program. We had just had our first child, and we were just kind of like, I don't know how we're going to be able to make this work. The hours that you have in residency are brutal. First-time parents, the hours at times that you keep as a college football coach are brutal sometimes. And so we stepped away, and then one thing led to another, and our first child, it just was good for me to be at home with some of the different stuff that we were kind of working through with her.
Which stop was it? It was before you took which job?
So when I got out of college, I coached 1 year of high school ball, and then I did 6 at Wofford. Okay. I was out for 3. I went back to the very same job. This is what's kind of crazy. I took the same job that I left at Wofford, and I was back there for 2 years. The last one as defensive coordinator. And then from there, when Coach Ayers retired, I ended up going down to Georgia Tech.
So they just kept the job warm for you over there.
That's what ended up happening. It was kind of
bump, I hope.
It was kind of crazy. I was just glad to be, back in the profession. So it was crazy how that worked out.
You hear about coaches that step away for a little while. Different. You were young at the time still, but was that to help you reset a little bit, or does it maybe put things in perspective a little bit more when you're running around and having to chase a little one versus having to figure out how to get these 280 pound guys to chase somebody? It
was the most unbelievable experience of my life. Would never trade it for the world. It was kind of nuts because, my first job right out of college was coaching. And so that's what you're involved with, and that's kind of all you know. And then, and you hear about a lot of times coaches that maybe do take a break or venture into something for a period of time and come back. A lot of us spend more time with family, is kind of the reasoning behind it and different things. But it was amazing, like, on a fall weekend, you could go do this on a Saturday if you wanted to. I mean, it's, or you could just sit there and veg out and watch 7 football games instead of just focusing on the one that you're, so there was a lot of neat things with that. But this is what I wanted to do. And I knew that when the time was right for us as a family that, I would look to get back in. Didn't know how that would work, didn't know if we might have to move or whatever. And then it just kind of worked out for me to slide right back into that spot. So
in the same area, you didn't even have to move at that point.
Well, we did move. We were in Wofford's in Spartanburg, South Carolina, and she ended up, as she graduated from med school, she matched down in Greenville, South Carolina, which is not too far, but we did actually end up moving down there. So when I came back, we were still living there, and I just kind of commuted back and forth, but worked out really good. And then a couple years after that, we were headed down to Atlanta, and on from there.
What are your early impressions on Brian Early?
My early impressions on Brian Early are he's
pretty chill.
Yeah, I really enjoyed getting to know Brian. A great first impression. I did not know Brian prior to this job. Never met him, never bumped into him before, never knew who he was. And, I've been impressed with him. I think he seems, from what I have witnessed thus far, he seems to be big attention to detail. I think he's got a really good football mind. He seems to be a very good communicator and teacher, very organized. We have had a chance now to sit down and just talk some football, and I've been very impressed. So I'm now aware of his story as I've gotten to know him a little bit over these last several weeks or month or so. And kind of his background. I can see why he's had the success that he's had. I'm aware of some of the guys he's recruited and coached and developed at other places and here, and the success that they've had over the years. And as I'm getting to know him more, I think I can see why some of those things have taken place. So certainly excited. Anytime you get a chance to work with somebody that you haven't worked with before, I feel like there's a great opportunity to learn. And certainly I'm looking forward to learning from him through this process and excited to work with him.
Willie coached at a number of smaller schools. You've coached at some smaller schools and places like Army where it could be a little challenging. Does that build a mindset? Does that help, that background, you think, coming from that kind of background?
I do. And I go back to my college coach, kind of came up that same way, and seeing again, I felt like at an early stage, I got a chance, and I tell people this all the time, I got a chance to see some things done at a really elite level. And I was aware that things were set up and done really well. As I've gone on more into my career, I appreciate some of that even more. And so, a leader that's, we're coming back from playing Montana in the playoffs, and he's on the tarmac slinging the luggage onto the truck as the head football, sweeping the floors. I mean, digging the ditch, wasn't afraid. And Coach Fritz has the same, or I say same, a very similar background to the man that I worked for and played for, And I think that when you have been at places with maybe less resources, you have to take on, larger responsibility in a lot of different areas. And Coach Fritz will tell you, he's done so many different roles. He talks to the staff and says, hey, I've done every job that we've got. I've been the strength coach. I've been I was taping ankles. I've been the guy lining the fields. And it does, I do think that it gives you an appreciation for the hard work that every role has and the difficulties, being able to relate to all those different experiences. And I think that his journey through his career, you can see how all that correlates to the success that he's had, I believe, at the different stops. And to win at all the different places he's won, that's been pretty impressive. to learn.
Coach Barbie about the resources, just, Houston's only been in the Big 12 a year, but how noticeable the difference was, even though y'all were well supported at Tulane. Has it been a noticeable change as far as resources and facilities, obviously with the new one getting built and all that?
Sure. Well, that's a game changer, obviously, but even, yes, I think a significantly different level of resource level, maybe vision of the leadership and willingness or ability to invest in some things is pretty evident when you step on campus and when you step into these facilities. And at the end of the day, I think to have a successful football program, you're trying to do the best that you can to support these student athletes that are going to be running around and making the catches and the touchdowns and the tackles and the interceptions on Saturday. And these resources that we have help us to recruit better players. Once we get them here, they help us to develop them to be the best versions of themselves that they can be, and all that, hopefully. And no different, it helps me. I get, the more support I get, the better coach I can be, because the less maybe I've got to spend time lining the fields like I maybe did, or help cutting the grass when I was a young coach at Wofford. So you get more time spent to help impact in your role, and maybe a more narrow focus, how you can help those guys be the best that they can be. So absolutely, I mean, it's a big deal.
Even though you've been to different spots, I mean, it's fair to say that, I mean, Walford's like ground zero for you. I mean, that's where you became sort of, you as a player, and then you got really into the coaching a lot. You worked under Mike. I mean, is that fair to say that place, it's special for many reasons, but that sort of helped mold, the early you to a lot of the principles and stuff you do now?
Yes, it laid that experience. For everybody's got their own journey, but for me, that experience as a player and as a coach, with the men that I was fortunate to be around as a player and a coach, laid a foundation for me that has supported me on this journey throughout my career.
And your wife was a soccer player, right?
She was. She was a very good soccer player from Columbus, Georgia, and very successful one there at Wofford, and that's where we met.
You weren't that bad of a receiver, though, either, were you?
You said that. I tried to be pretty good. We did a lot of blocking at times in those days as well with what we did, but I was decent. Tried hard.
What do you think it is about Willie that makes him a successful, head coach?
I think, off the top of my head, first thing that comes to mind, he's genuine, he's sincere, he's very even keel, level-headed, common sense approach, organized, attention to detail, experienced, has values, sticks to those values, consistent approach day in and day out. Doesn't get too high with the highs, doesn't get too low with the lows. I mean, all the things that you could probably pick up a leadership book or leadership books and read about effective leaderships in industry or, whatever in any field of life. I think he's probably got those foundational, fundamental principles, and you can witness that every day. He's engaging. He cares about people, we're down there in the weight room today, and he's going up the guys in between their sets and, hey, how's your break? How's your family? Just talk to anybody. He's doesn't have an ego, just approachable. Just so many things I think that have been fun to be a part of and witness. And in any profession, you have folks like that, and you have some other folks maybe where some of that stuff doesn't take place, and it's been a joy to be a part of.
For those of us who are still just kind of learning the dynamics of the staff, what have you seen from him having Wes in that role and sort of being able to, because Wes had a lot of input to Lane, and just the father-son dynamic, but also the head coach and player personnel or GM or whatever. I'm not sure what his title is.
I think from my vantage point, it's just a very professional relationship that he has with Wes. similar to what he has with me or anybody else that has been in the organization, whether it was Tulane or here. I think Wes has a lot of great experience. I think that structurally, I think Coach Fritz has spent a lot of time over the years and tweaking and trying to refine the best way to recruit, to support the coaches in their recruiting efforts. And I think that Wes in his role does a great job with that as well and has a ton of input on everything that we do from a player personnel and recruiting standpoint. So, yes, father-son, absolutely. But I think, he's a valued part, just like in the relationship that I see is just like Coach has with everybody else that's an employee here.
Got time for a couple more here.
When did you know that you wanted to be a coach, that that's what you wanted to do? You know, how young were you? When did you sort of come to that?
I would have always, growing up, had that in the back of my head. During probably early college, I decided that's what I wanted to do. My dad played college football. He started off as a high school football coach, coached in college for a little bit, then ended up getting into athletic administration and so forth. But, growing up, that was, a big deal to me. So it was always kind of, I guess, in my blood in a way.
Are you going to work with linebackers or outside linebackers?
I'm going to work with the inside linebackers as in my role positionally.